Claire. So thanks for joining us for our Scientist Spotlight. We are super excited to have you. For everyone watching, this is Dr. Claire Simeone. So Claire, will you tell us a little bit more about maybe some of your background and then what you're doing now?
Yeah, Lauren, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you. So my background, I am a marine mammal veterinarian, and I went to veterinary school at Virginia Tech. And then I moved out to the West Coast. I worked with the National Marine Mammal Foundation in SeaWorld San Diego, training with them. I moved up to the Bay Area and started working with the Marine Mammal Center and National Marine Fisheries Service. And then I transitioned into my previous position as the director of the Hawaiian monk seal conservation program with the Marine Mammal Center. And most recently, right in line with when everybody went into lockdown with the pandemic, I decided that it was a great idea to start my own company. And but really, it's kind of the ideal time because it's really focused on health. And the company is called Sea Change Health. And really, the premise is that we all of us benefit from a healthy world, and so focusing on marine mammal health and human health and conservation health to ultimately work towards revolutionizing the way that we envision and define health.
I think I'm so excited to hear about this new project that you're working on, Sea Change Health, because I think people maybe don't realize or don't understand how interconnected animal health is, ocean health, and human health. So just that you've brought these all together, and I just think is just a really great concept, and I think it's going to be really well received, and I think it's really exciting.
Oh, thank you. It's really exciting, and I think when you and I worked together at the Marine Mammal Center, it's so clear seeing stranded animals come in on the beaches, much of the time affected by actions that we humans have taken, and understanding that marine mammals really are sentinels of the ocean, and their health gives us direct insight into what's happening with the health of the environment. And then we're so interlinked. We share the same beaches, we share the same food sources often, and so the health impacts that marine mammals experience can be direct. If nothing more than calls of alarm to what we really should be listening to from the natural world.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, our history goes back to the Marine Mammal Center, and you were doing, a combination of conservation work and clinical work with the marine mammals. So what drove you to kind of start Sea Change Health?
Well, I think, I love the clinical aspect of being a veterinarian, and I love with marine mammals that there's always so much to learn, and even with our own health and with human health, we're developing innovative techniques, and it's the same thing with marine mammals as well. But I started to see how ultimately the question is, when we're going to solve these big conservation issues, these big health issues that we face, we need to inspire people into action. And for me, I think that the best way to do that is for people to be able to see the connection and to value their own health in what they do. And I think right now, when we're in the middle of a pandemic and we're, for months on end have been locked in our houses and can't see our loved ones, and all of the effects on our physical and mental health throughout that time, it's sort of this petri dish of showing us that this was the coronavirus is a zoonotic disease that spread originally from animals, and we're all so interlinked, and much of it is because we've kind of stopped listening to what the natural world has to share.
which kind of brings me to my next question. So you were the first marine mammal or first veterinarian, I think, to be a TED Fellow,
Yeah.
which
Yes.
congratulations is amazing.
Thank
And you
you.
kind of termed, this new term. Will you tell us a little bit about that? You kind of touched on it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we are, thinking about coronavirus and thinking about diseases and how they spread. Zoonoses are diseases that spread between humans and animals, and but there's often this misconception with the public that it's something that it's a disease that humans catch from animals, just like rabies. Thinking that if there's a rabid animal that a human can get infected. But disease transfer actually goes both ways, and humans can catch diseases from animals, but animals can also catch diseases from humans. And one from a marine mammal standpoint, thinking about influenza and avian influenza can affect humans. It can affect marine mammal species as well. Actually, the H1N1 pandemic influenza virus that was circulating in humans in 2010 was found the next year in 2011 in elephant seals off the coast of California.
Mm-hmm.
And so the diseases spread both ways, but kind of just like diseases, our knowledge transfer spreads both ways as well. And so we're not just, learning about animals and then saving animals. That's much of what a job as a veterinarian we do, but it goes both ways. And so I coined a term called zoognosis, which is kind of a dorky dorky but it takes the Greek root gnosis for knowledge, and
Mm-hmm.
then zoo for all animal life, including us. And so the zoognosis is this knowledge that's spread between humans and animals, and because we have so many connections, and it's not just from a medicine standpoint. It's from listening to what the natural world has to share and using that to, because of course we're very human centric, right? Like what's in it for us. And so how can we use that to solve the problems we face, but also to solve the challenges that that marine mammal populations or animal populations in general are facing.
Yeah, it's just amazing. So is there a good example of anything you've done or working on, or is the COVID pandemic an example of zoonosis?
I think so. That it's definitely a complex example. We're learning so much and watching the scientific process in real time. As we're figuring out what this disease is about and how we're still learning so much about what animals can be affected and how transmission works. From more recent work that I've been working on, you might have heard the story of Cronut, the sea lion.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and so I think that he really highlights it. Cronut is he's a sea lion that stranded multiple times along the California coast, and ultimately was deemed non-releasable because he was habituated to humans and ultimately started having seizures. And so it was likely that he was intoxicated by domoic acid, which is a biotoxin that is produced by marine algae, and it can cause brain damage and seizures and long-term epilepsy.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was adopted by Six Flags in Six Flags Discovery Kingdom in Vallejo, California, and they had been they'd been giving him a home for the past couple of years, and I had the pleasure of working with Cronut for the past year or so, and his condition just declined. Over time, his seizures were becoming more frequent. He would stop eating for long periods, like weeks at a time, was losing 50 pounds. We were coming to the point where we had to make a decision of what was best for him and his welfare. And so we had previously been connected with researchers from UCSF they've been studying epilepsy for 2 decades, and developing this new cell therapy using cells that will turn into neurons when they're transplanted into the brain. And so with epilepsy, you have, or with, in a regular brain, you have excitatory neurons and inhibitory neurons, and they kind of keep each other in balance. And when you have brain damage, then the inhibitory neurons are killed off. So you just have the excitatory neurons that are firing and seizures, and there's that whole loop. And so what they had found was that transplanting these cells into the damaged part of the brain, then they would integrate into the brain. And in rodents, they had found that they had stopped seizures, reversed behavioral changes, basically cured epilepsy in many cases. And so 3 weeks ago, we were able to, as a last ditch effort, and during the pandemic, with like 18 specialists all coming together, came together and performed this transplant, which was the first time that it's been performed in a sea lion, and actually the first time that naturally occurring epilepsy was attempted to be treated with this type of transplant in any species. And Cronut he's alive and he's eating and he's doing well, and it's still too early to tell. We're kind of in that time frame where the cells wouldn't have integrated into the brain, so we can't tell if there's a positive effect yet. But just the fact that that it was able to be performed, for me, and especially thinking about epilepsy from domoic acid toxicosis, that the brain damage looks almost identical to the lesions that are found in temporal lobe epilepsy in humans. And I'm sure that you were really familiar looking at so many sea lion brains in what was like a lifetime ago, right? And so for me, that is where this concept of zoognosis is really well highlighted, that there's this natural marine toxin. It causes amnesic shellfish poisoning in humans. It affects sea lions. Impacts from climate change and increasing sea surface temperatures from our human impacts are causing these blooms to be more and more frequent and more pervasive. And so gathering this knowledge that these researchers have been able to gather, and then being able to use it to help a sea lion like Cronut is just amazing to me. And it's something that, even though we don't know if it's going to be successful, like just that one step for me gives me hope that that these kinds of knowledge transfers can really have the potential to revolutionize a lot of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, when you think about those, some of the researchers that, we worked with when I was there, they were looking at human, like you said, human, brains and epilepsy, but using sea lions as a model. So how amazing to like link these two together and to be able to use, marine mammals or, as a model, and then to apply it to human medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where it goes both ways, is that yes, that you can use it to help a sea lion, and you can use it to learn more about something that could make a huge impact for us, for humans, in the future, and give us more insights about what the changes in the environment mean for us, because we know that the blooms are becoming more frequent, more pervasive, and it's something that we've got to address.
So looking ahead, if this is successful, is there, this may be too far out, like how this could this even be applied like to the masses, right? We get masses of animals that strand in these events. Could someday this be something that is, an injection or something, or is it like, would it just be a case by case?
I think it for right now it's something that is just done in like very small numbers, and the researchers at UCSF and UC Berkeley and all of the different collaborators are hopeful that it's something that can be used kind of more widespread. But I think for me it's adding one more tool to the toolkit, that having this procedure isn't going to be able to save every single sea lion, but it's one tool that we have, and one tool that we have to be able to communicate the importance of it, and educate people on just how dire the situation is, and what we can do. And so yeah, don't, keeping a tempered response of like, it's not the silver bullet, but it's just
Sure.
one piece that's like, yeah, that's really exciting to be able to use.
It's super exciting and cutting edge, and I'm excited to hear how Cronut does. I hope it's really
Ooh.
successful.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, congratulations in being a part of that. It's exciting and amazing, and I hope it's super successful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
It's pretty cool to see. And I think, right, like that with conservation and with medical innovation and with all of these pieces that it takes the whole community, and it takes like so many different pieces of expertise and pieces of input, and everybody doing their part to provide the data that's needed to understand what's going on. And it's like, it's so cool to be even a tiny little piece of that. And you feel like your purpose is fulfilled to do something really good.
when it comes really full circle, because a lot of the work that we do, especially in conservation, and it's so day to day, and it's hard to see a final, or something that actually comes out of it, right? Conservation is so long term and big picture. So to be able to do this surgery, successful or not, it's so it's exciting to be able to see, okay, we've applied our knowledge to
Yeah.
the situation, and this is what we've learned from it, or whatever.
Exactly, exactly. And I think it's taking those wins, because exactly as you said, that conservation is a long game, and we run into, I think that also folks that are in the field, and that are supporters of it, we do it because we're really passionate about making a difference. But I think that it also leaves us open to being really affected by it, because there's a lot of big problems that are out there, and a lot of big challenges to address, and it can become overwhelming, this ecological grief of all of the changes we see. And that was another piece that's really important to me with Sea Change Health, is that not only understanding about animal health and about environmental health, but how can we can't do anything effectively unless we are our best selves and we're as healthy as we can be. And I think that particularly in the field of conservation, that a lot of us struggle with that. And so focusing that aspect on it, so that when we're our healthiest, then we can go out and really be targeted and effective at what we do, and try, instead of trying to run this marathon and be completely exhausted.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I I think that's really important to talk about. I think it's a really interesting part of kind of Sea Change Health, that you do have human health. And at first, I wasn't sure if it was, how are these things affecting human health, which it may be, but also, like you're talking about, our personal health and well-being, which I just think is a different part that people don't always necessarily talk about with conservation and with medicine, maybe, or veterinary medicine. So it's an interesting piece of the puzzle, and I just want to hear a little bit more of how, I mean, I think you explained it well, but how that piece really fits into the bigger picture.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's definitely personal, and I've struggled with burnout. I've struggled with health issues. I mean, you were there when I had a postpartum heart attack, and was recovering from that, and that just like totally changes. I think those like near death experiences change your whole outlook of like, okay, what are my priorities with this, and it is something that so few of us, that it's sort of acceptable to talk about, and to talk about those struggles. And um, but it's so clear to me, how minimally effective I am when I'm kind of just like slogging through everything, and just like trying to do too much, trying to really save the world. I think that a lot of us get into it, and it's like you're driven because you want to make a difference, and you see that the world needs saving, right? And so it's like, okay, I'm gonna try to do that, I'm gonna do my part, but like that goal is way too big. It's way too big for any one person to be able to do, and so like the pressure on that is immense. And so I'm kind of curious, like, can we shift that instead, where our narrative is instead like, can I be, a part of a community that is supportive, and can I be part of something that's larger, and do in the grand scheme of things, the really, really tiny piece that's so critical, because like that's what I was put here to do, or that's what you were put here to do, and that's the most critical thing, and that's what's going to have that exponential growth, I think.
Yeah, and I love how you just termed environmental grief. I I think about that. I get that question, like questions that you're touching on a lot. I just think that's a really great term, because people will just feel overwhelmed with, and especially now, right, in this pandemic. But how can I fix climate change or plastic pollution? It's overwhelming. I don't know what I can do. And so I just think that was an interesting way of terming it. But any good advice? Like I get this question a lot. What can I do as a single person to combat these huge problems that are affecting the whole world? How can I make a difference as an individual?
I think originally when people would start to ask that, like my response was, start locally, change your own behaviors, do the things that you can do. And I feel like I've almost shifted perhaps a little bit into the like woo woo type thing with it, but into understanding, like for me, we are, when we can listen and be receptive to what the natural world is saying to us, and we can actually receive that and feel it, that is when we can start to get insight of what the answer is. Like I'm definitely a type A personality, and kind of a left brain type person of, okay, there's a problem, I need to like set up these goals, and I need to work through them, and like identify my metrics and all of that.
Mhm.
But like that isn't necessarily going to have the answer. But if we, and it's so uncomfortable, right? It's uncomfortable to feel that grief associated with it, and of saying that like these problems are real, and they're overwhelming, but that's been most helpful for me, is not to get totally sucked under by it, but to recognize it as like, that's actually telling me something, and telling me that like, wow, these are the really, really critical pieces. And from that point, then it's easier for me to set up small little actions, and where I'm actually coming from more of a place of, okay, this feels right to me, because ultimately, like I can treat individual animals like cronut, but I can do so much more if I can help people to feel through that, and then inspired, so that they go off and they make amazing changes. I mean, that's where the scalability is really there.
Yeah.
No one likes to hear the, well, you got to feel the discomfort.
No,
And
I think
also,
that's such a critical part of the puzzle that people really aren't talking about and don't really touch on, or they're two different fields, right? You like your mental health and your work health, and things are kept separate. So I just love that you're bringing them together. And I think you're going to make huge changes doing this. Yeah. So I mean, Sea Change Health is um, pretty new, right? Last a few months. I don't know, 6 months, a year.
yeah, about 6 months old.
So what do you see? What's on your horizon, like moving forward?
So I would love to get to a point where folks understand the connections. They understand really how we need to reshape how we redefine health. It's not just the absence of disease. It's not just that, okay, things look good on the surface. It's so complex and so multifaceted. And so I hope that we're able to do that in 3 different arenas, from the marine mammal health perspective of, building these innovative processes, like, and collaborating like on Cronut's case, from the human health perspective of being able to create these communities where people can really highly value their own health, whether they are in the field and practicing and they're healthcare professionals themselves, or folks that just care really strongly about health. And then from a conservation health standpoint, we want to build metrics that help us define how healthy conservation projects are. And so just touching on that really quickly, there, when we you and I working with conservation programs, that like the metrics that we use to define how we're successful are things like how many animals we saved, or how much, how many different tests we were able to run, or how many acres of land you're able to conserve. But how healthy are those programs in reality themselves? Are they exploiting unpaid labor, and how that's working in an unfair way? Is there equity? Is there kind of parachute science going on, where people are coming in, instead of really building up expertise locally, that instead people are coming in ways that are less healthy. And so it's understanding and building that up so that we can focus on health in all three of those ways, because when we have a healthier planet, that benefits all of us.
I'm so excited to hear about it, Claire. I'm so excited for you guys and your new venture, and to follow you guys. Where can we find more information about Sea Change Health?
You can go to seachangehealth.org. I would love for you to check it out and read more.
Everyone should. Well, thank you for joining us today. I know you've such a busy schedule. We're going to be following along and sharing your work and sharing Cronut's story, so we can follow along to see how he's doing. And yeah, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Lauren. Thanks for having me.
Of course.